So here's the idea. First off, Module 11 is about web servers. That's really what it is. Does it have to be a web server? Yeah, it does. I'll tell you why in a minute. So really what we're saying is, there's a web server, there's me. So happy me at my device browser. Here is the normal progression of events. I reach out to the web server, which is to say web page, which is to say I'm going to put in a name and password. The web server is going to agree to and like my name and password, hence I'm authenticated and I'm in. But here's what we know. We should know to this point that what the web server is really going to be issuing to me is some type of identifier, some type of token, some type of cookie, something that if I were to send that information back to the web server, it would agree that it's me and continue to talk. Additionally, if the web server wants to, it can query it to ensure that it is me. But when you authenticate with this web-based application, for example, well, I'll get to that in a second. When you authenticate to this web-based application, it's called a session. You now have a session with the web server. Whatever it is that this web server has provided for this authentication, that's what we're going after. Here's what I want. So, as you know, I'm the bad guy. What's the bad guy going to do? Couple things. The attack surface you're looking at now is, it'd be pretty cool if the bad guy could just take that. But Bill, why? Well, if the bad guy takes that token or that session identifier, then there's nothing at all stopping the bad guy from using that same exact identifier at the web server, which effectively means the bad guy is now you. Or at least the web server thinks he is, because he's got your membership card. Okay? Another thing that the bad guy is going to want to leverage here is the ability to hop up on this wire and see what it can catch in respect to that transaction. Well, Bill, what's the bad guy looking for? Same thing. Whatever it is that the web-based application would agree is you. If the bad guy can get it, predict it, guess it, and play it back off, then the bad guy is really you. That's it. I mean, that's it. That's what this whole module is about. Okay? Well, let's carve it up. Once again, this is a web server, web app situation. Yeah, but Bill, I happen to know for a fact that where I work, we have servers, and we've got applications that we use from the client. Sure you do. And if they're not browser-based, then you have an installed client-side application, and that's a separate process. Okay? So now, what is session hijacking? Well, if there is a legitimate session between anybody and anything, can I get in on that? So this is going to involve, in no small part, an element of what we talked about, I believe, yesterday, which was sniffing. Remember that? Sniffing. So what is it that this server considers to be valid that they're passing off that I can snake right off the wire, take it from the victim, whatever? Okay? Now, they do something interesting here, which I'm going to take issue with just a little bit because, well, I'm a difficult person. But let's remember something. If the book says it, it's the law, that's your exam. Whether or not I agree with it is a separate thing, but here's my concern. They say that the attacker steals a valid ID, which is used to get into the system and snoop the data. Absolutely. If I've got the ID and I can get into the system, I can snoop the data. But it's the getting of the ID that's the session hijack, not the rest of it. Okay? The rest of it is why you hijack the session. But it's the hijacking of the session that is the attack we're talking about here. I don't think I brought this up with, did we go to OWASP yet in this class? I know we went to it in CASP. I think we did. OWASP is where you live to begin to understand everything that's going to come up in this module. Was that last one? And here's why this becomes so massively significant. This is a web server, web app, web-based communication problem. And we get to blame it all on two people, but mostly one, and that's the web-based developer. The developers have to write the app, the web-based application, which is to say they have to write the code. But Bill, you know what? You keep saying that. Can you give me an example of what you're talking about? You keep saying web-based application. I'm just not seeing it. There's one. You should remember this one. Here's one right here. This is a web-based application whereby, now let's have just a little bit of fun with this. We don't have to have a lot of fun with this, but I'd like to have a little bit of fun with this. So watch what I'll do here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. I'm going to take that information. I'm going to put it in there. So this is what, let me do this, format, font. I'm going to make it teeny, teeny, tiny, 10. Why? So I can fit it on one line. I know you guys can barely see that, but that's okay for right now. I need to see it. So what I've done, and you know what? I want to make sure, give me just a second. I just want to make sure that what I think is happening is what's actually happening. So I'm going to go back there. What's that?
There is a way to go in. I can't remember exactly how to do it. You can change what URL the user is seeing.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. That's exactly what we're going to be talking about, too. Here is our New Horizons URL. So here's what I'm going to be driving at. Okay? No big deal. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in over here. So I'm going to go... Oh, God, I forgot. I totally forgot. Pooh! Hate this. Don't have your phone. And isn't it here where I have to go? There we go. So it's going to come through email, and that's totally fine. But just give it a second. Hold. There it is. Got it. They're actually pretty speedy with this. All right. So we go there. Now that takes us to this home page. Cool. So I'm there. Nice. Love it. Like it. Question is, oh, let me do this. I apologize. Question is, so you'll notice the changes in the URL. Come back. Let's go over here. Logged in. There's my instructor calendar. Not that necessarily matters, but I want to see how this one changed. Okay. Now, let me go back over here. I'll go to admin. There's actually some good stuff going on here. It makes me quite pleased. I'm seeing what I'm seeing. Now, here's where we're going to go with this. Has there been anything yet that would identify me to the server insofar as the URL? We don't know. But you're going to be able to hijack as an attacker unless there's encryption, which, interestingly enough, I don't know if you guys caught this, I'm noticing that HTTPS, we are encrypting. Well, that's pretty massive. Why is that massive? Because if there's an attacker on the wire and they're sniffing the packets, they're encrypted. Good luck. You can do anything with this. I cruise over here to the New Horizons website. It's also encrypted. Well, that's awesome. That is good news, right? Then what I'll do is I'll try something else. I'm just throwing stuff out here. We'll go to the Plex TV. You guys are going to see all kinds of my emails. Don't bother. Then we go to my Plex server, which this is what's sitting on my Raspberry Pi, and we launch. Okay. What we're trying to find out is why this never seems to work. I just had it working earlier today. Now my server's down again. What the heck is going on? I did! I brought it up earlier today for the other class. I did a demo on this. It was working like a champ. What the heck is going on at my house? We'll come back to that. Here's what we're trying to find out. What's actually moving across the wire? Okay? Now, I purposely queued up a couple of URLs so that we can see some things. But ultimately what's going to happen in this case is that when you authenticate to the web-based application, what does it give to you? What are you going to give back to prove that you're you so that you're still trusted? What we wind up with on a lot of systems is that we run into the no account lockout for anything, whether it's just genuine login attempts or invalid session IDs, which we're going to see this in just a second. Insecure handling of them. Where are they stored? How are they stored? Do they move in an encrypted fashion? IDs that are generated via weak algorithms. I read an article when I got up this morning. Before I crawled back in bed with my daughter, I checked on a couple of things, and there's an article, and I just kind of grazed by it. For those of you that are a bunch of Apple lunatics, which I say that all nerds, we got to stick together. But for those of you that are on the Apple side of the fence, if I get these numbers wrong, give me a break. But whatever iOS version that Apple has, it just upgraded to 7.1, I guess. And apparently Apple changed a random number generator in the version to something that's actually weaker than was in the previous version. And as a result, the numbers are more susceptible to being known. Well, that's a problem. So this directly correlates to that. If you log into a website, can you just sit there forever? Like, is there any time at which you're forced to log back in again? I don't know. And then ultimately, things are just not being encrypted. All of these are bad things. Well, who do we blame on this? We blame two people. The first person that we blame, without hesitation, is the web developer. Why? Because they're the one that wrote the app. But the second person that we blame, very, very easily, is we blame you. You should have reviewed that developer's code and how the application was functioning. Okay, fine. Well, session hijacking techniques involve just flat out either brute forcing, stealing, or calculating. Well, brute forcing, stealing, or calculating what? This. Part of it starts with, and this is why I had just brought up a couple of web pages, because I want to see what's in the URL. A lot of times we've got, people that are writing web-based apps and other people are using them, and the whole app and the whole process is really weak and very Mickey Mouse. So what we might see within the application is that a session ID may just simply exist in the URL. So what I was doing over here, very specifically, was I wanted to see if it appeared that anything of benefit was in the URL. It sure doesn't look like it. It sure doesn't look like I'm seeing anything in here that would matter. And as we took it a little bit further, okay, I noticed that after login, there's really nothing in there. So the ID, whatever's being used back and forth, it's not in the URL, because after login, there's just nothing there. And then I danced around a little further. Saw the same thing down here with the New Horizons page. After login, I did go to the calendar. I did do that. I did go to the calendar. But what we see here is my calendar was displaying, nothing. There's nothing in here that appears to be session ID specific. And as I dance around to generic pages, a lot of this has to do with the fact that it's encrypted. Because of what's encrypted, we're saying there's an item someplace else. Secure sockets or keys are exchanged. So what's moving across in terms of your identity, which could possibly have some cookie perspectives on this, it's buried down a little bit further in the system. So nothing very exciting in the URL. Not a big deal, but nothing very exciting. Okay? But what we're going to do here when we brute force is we're going to be smart. There's a couple different ways you can do the brute force. If you look at the URL and you just flat out say, you know what, I think that's the session ID. Oh, okay. Well, then what we're talking about is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16 characters. It looks like there's some uppercase. I could assume there could be some lowercase and some numbers. Well, you can put upper, lowercase, 0 through 9 into a mathematical blender and spit out every combination in, 5 seconds? Using a tool? So then what I do as the attacker is I simply go to that website trying every single one of those options. I just try every single option until it accepts one of them. And it works. This works all the time. If that's actually the session ID, which I don't know that it is. But that's what we're trying to find out. So brute forcing is, do I have an idea of what the ID is, and can I try them? And if the website itself is not doing this, well, you can brute force. I mean, we talked about that earlier. You take the legs out of a brute force by locking things out.